It's Wrestling Observer Radio for, what is it, May the 26th, 2024, Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Dave Meltzer, and it's Jim Valley. And we were chatting off the air, Dave. I think it's been since around Christmas time since we've done one of these. It's been too long. I missed talking to you.
Yeah, I missed doing a show with you too. We should get Fumi on at some point too and do a show. I don't know when. Maybe Dominion. But Dominion's in Osaka. He may not be going. So maybe but maybe some big show coming up.
Somewhere. How about Forbidden Door?
Maybe. Yeah.
It's so hard with you and Fumi because your schedules are like completely opposite.
Yeah.
I have a hard time enough trying to line up with Fumi, and I don't have your schedule. We'll see. We'll see what we can do. Let's definitely do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Forbidden. I mean, I guess we'll probably have some ideas about Forbidden Door this week.
One would think. I think we got some hints with the Collision, with the spoiler alert, Tanahashi showing up on Collision. But, with the integration, since we're talking about Forbidden Door real quick, with the integration of All Elite Wrestling in New Japan, I guess they're going to need, they talked about Stardom. They talked about even CMLL. You're going to need those groups to make it seem forbidden this year.
Yeah, but I mean, we're going to get Stardom for sure, and I'm almost sure we're going to get CMLL. The problem with CMLL is that if they have CMLL on the show, that means that Roosh and Pentagon and Phoenix and Commander, who we haven't even seen much of lately, but all of them would then be unable to be on the show for all the political reasons. So, Commander hasn't been around lately anyway, but Pentagon and Phoenix are just getting going, and Roosh is just getting going. But that's just the nature of the beast. But it'll be, I don't know what's gonna. I mean, it's going to be weird because the IWGP title, they're not going to really be able to announce anything until after June 9th. But they still would have a couple of weeks, and that's been the case before. They have to wait for Dominion to announce a lot of the New Japan matches.
And if you don't have Commander, it's hard to answer the question, who's going to beat Commander? I just say, All right, before we get into King and Queen of the Ring and Collision and things, you saw the Ishii match in Noah. You said it was great.
Oh, Ishii and Kid Mia match from the 22nd. Yeah, that match was fantastic. I mean, it's funny because it's every Ishii match that you've seen. You would know all the spots, but it's like one of those things where it's like you see in Ric Flair in his prime, you would see every Ric Flair match, right? And then all of a sudden you would see a match with Barry Windham, and it's still the same, but it's just that much better because of the other guy's the perfect opponent. And Kitamiya, is not like the greatest wrestler in the world, but he's like Shingo Takagi, or Shibata, where they're like perfect opponents for Ishii. And they just did that match. And, and they had a great crowd. Ishii's more effective in Japan right now. All the New Japan guys actually, to me, are more effective when they're not in New Japan because it's like they're great. But in New Japan, you've seen them so many times and you've seen the matchups and everything like this. But when they go to another company and wrestle the guys in that company, they're the biggest company and their guys are the biggest stars. So when the biggest stars come to Noah or All Japan and wrestle against the top guys from those companies and they let loose, the atmosphere is just so great. It's the same thing with Yuji Nagata and Satoshi Kojima. We're doing nothing in New Japan, and they go to their companies, and it's like, oh my God, these guys are, especially Yuji Nagata, they just go out there and have killer matches. And Ishii, Ishii has killer matches in New Japan still, but this was, I think this was his best match of the year. It's just that perfect match. I mean, just like everything got over. It was every single move had a purpose. Every single move meant something, and every single move had that extra something that you get in like an incredible match. It was really, it was. I thought it was one of the best matches I've seen, this year. Not the best because this year's been ridiculous for like the top 3 or 4 matches this year. Just like there's a couple matches this year, they're just so far out of this world, it's not even funny. And this wasn't that one, but this was pretty great. And Keno and Minoru Suzuki had a match on that same show that was also excellent. I mean, and Suzuki, like physically, you are starting to see his body look old. You know, he's almost 56 years old. But then the bell rings and he's just tremendous still. So that was, and he's another one. You know, he goes in there and he wrestles in one of those other companies. You know, when he wrestled Brendan Reed in Chicago, it was no big deal. When he goes and wrestles Keno at Korakuen Hall, you know, from Noah, you know, it's this dream match type scenario, and the people just go crazy for it, and they really deliver. And Suzuki, again, like he knows his limitations, he knows what he does good, and he just does what he does good. That's it. And that's, you know, that's what a smart wrestler does. And he's a very smart wrestler. Ishii, you know, but Ishii is just like, when he's on, man, that guy's incredible. And he's on almost all the time. He does singles matches.
By the way, we do want to mention the major wrestling event of the weekend. Vinny defeated Brian in the Belleville rejuvenation match. Spoilers. Mm-hmm. They'll go into details, I'm sure, on the Brian and Vinny show, but we'd be remiss if we didn't mention that. Yeah. You didn't go to Vegas this year.
No, my daughter had a ballet recital today. So I didn't even watch, I didn't even get home until, you know, like almost 9 o'clock, 8:45. And so I just watched King of the Ring. So I didn't even get a chance to watch King and Queen of the Ring. And I didn't get a chance to watch Collision or anything. So tell me about Collision, and then we can do the King and Queen of the Ring.
Do you want to do ratings first?
We can talk about ratings, sure.
Why don't you knock out ratings? We'll do King and Queen of the Ring and Collision, all that fun stuff.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, just the AEW rating. So it was 713,000 viewers and 0.24, which is, you know, essentially the same range as it's been doing. There's a couple of interesting notes about it. I mean, one is that the competition was much tougher this week than any week, because as the deeper we get into the playoffs, I mean, the NHL game did just under 2 million viewers. The NBA game did just over 7 million viewers, which is much higher than the Wednesday NBA games are doing. It's also the final of Survivor, which, you know, is the #1 entertainment show on all of television right now. So they had really tough competition, and they were up from last week. I mean, of course, last week's number was not a good number, and it's still well below what they were doing a year ago, but everyone's well below. I mean, this last week, when I was doing the lead story in the Observer about AEW history, and I was just going through the last couple of weeks and how much cable's dropped on Wednesday nights, and it blew me away. I had no idea. I mean, I knew the NBA had been dropping, and the NBA is as powerful as there is, except for the NFL on television, and it's been dropping. WB's not dropping, but you know, most is. NHL's actually even, but everyone's lauding the NHL for being even in the playoffs right now. I mean, as far as on Wednesdays. But I mean, I would call it like kind of good, only because at least it's better than it's been doing with much tougher opposition. So I guess you would call that good. The key thing is one of the key things is 1834 has just been, you know, really dropped bad for AEW in the last, really since about March 27th, I would say, you know, would be probably where you would really see the kickoff, maybe even a week or two before that, but really exacerbated the last 3 weeks. And it was up. They were back. I mean, they were still well below what they were doing. I mean, even a bottom show last year against the NBA playoffs was doing better than this week's show did, but not that much better. So it wasn't like, you know, it was like, I saw it like, because it'd been dropping. It's really been a bad thing. And even on the men's side, it still was down. What picked up was the women actually. Women actually outdrew men in 1834, which is never happens with AEW. I mean, that's just unbelievable. And the thing that was unique is that they started incredibly low. But usually, you know, with AEW, you know, you start at a certain level and they usually drop off, just like a lot of shows do that, but they drop off, and sometimes a lot, sometimes not that much. This one, the 1834, started low and ended like actually where it ended with the Danielson Satnam Singh match and the post match with the Young Bucks and everything. Where it ended was actually, you know, like almost good. Like it went from like 47 to 88,000 from the start of the show to the end of the show. That's, you know, almost double. It almost never happens. And then women started really high and then they dropped. So it's usually you will see them go at a similar thing because a lot of the 1834 viewers, men and women, are actually watching together because they're couples. That's actually, it's more guys, but a lot of couples watch. So when it goes up together. When it goes down together. And this one, it was like women went down, men went up. I don't really have an explanation other than, and women went down a lot. They started very high and ended normal. And men started very, very low and ended almost normal. So it was a unique thing. And then the other one was that in the men 35 to 49, which is the most stable part of the AEW audience, the one you can always count on, this one was down. And it's like, to me, that's, again, it's only 1 week and I don't overplay 1 week. But the one thing is that you can count on with AEW is about 145,000 viewers in that one demo that's always going to be there through thick and thin, NBA, whatever. They're always going to be there. And this week was like they lost 10,000 of them. And if they start losing that one audience, which is their most solid audience, that would be scary. So, there's little things to look at. But they're very lucky that when 18 to 34 went up, that 35 to 49, that the 35 to 49 dropping did not really hurt them because they ended up about where they have been. So it's, there's whatever, it's overall, considering what they've been doing the last couple of weeks in the competition, I would consider it fine. If you had given me this number 2 months ago and said this is what they're going to be doing on this day, I would not have said the same thing. I would say, that's pretty bad. But that's just how it's gone. And a lot of it's cable, but, again, AEW product, look, it's not knocking them dead. You can watch the TV every week and, not every week is the crowds bad, but most weeks they are. And that tells you the story right there.
Yeah, no, there's no question numbers are down. That group, I wonder, do they want to see wrestling? And they know that with that main event, you're going to get, you're not going to get a wrestling match. You're going to get sort of stunts. And
I think the comeback at the end for the men is that everybody knew that Darby Allin was coming back, and clearly the women didn't care, and the guys grew. So it's even more than that. I think that it could be that at the beginning of the show, people were watching other sports. And as the show went on, maybe it was time to switch to see what's going on in the wrestling show. I don't know. But, it was – I don't think I've ever seen growth in any demo like they did. So, that is something good. But, I think it's the show-long Darby Allin storyline. I actually expected the audience to maintain throughout the show better than usual, and it did. Because that's one of the things they should be doing is, like, doing something that teases throughout the show rather than – the usual AEW thing where you lay out all these things and they're all separate from each other. It's like, okay, this is, Swerve Strickland's segment, and this is the Young Bucks segment, and this is this person's segment. And that's just their segment. And nothing like, it's not like it lays out throughout the whole show most of the time. Most of the time it's
there's no narrative.
Yeah. And this time there was, from the beginning of the show, they basically told you Darby Allin's banned in a way where it's, okay, Darby Allin's coming in the last segment. We know that. And they delivered it, and they did something spectacular with the flamethrowers and everything. So, they delivered. And, we'll see. They've got, tomorrow's one of their big shows of the year. And, again, I'm sure it's going to be a great show. Every pay-per-view they do,
right,
for the most part, is a great show. But, they're still, they have proven that you can deliver some of the greatest pay-per-views ever and keep your pay-per-view audience for the most part pretty strong, but it doesn't necessarily affect the other parts of your business because, it didn't, like the Greensboro pay-per-view was fantastic. And then the Dynasty was fantastic. And it's not like it kickstarted any other aspect of the business. It's not like people started buying tickets for the house shows all of a sudden, or for the TVs coming off of those great shows, or started coming back to TVs, from that. It's going to take a lot more. And again, they're in a tough position because there's so many hours of first run wrestling a week, and nobody can keep up with it, unless you're just crazy. And if they were the premium brand, I think they would be doing pretty well, but they're not the premium brand. And so it's a lot tougher when the premium band, is on every single week with, 7 hours a week, unless it's this week where there's, 10 and a half hours. So that's a lot of product to digest, plus all the shoulder programming and all the stuff that's on streaming and everything like that. I mean, we're not in a period where like in other eras where there was not a lot of wrestling on television. So wrestling itself, the novelty of wrestling on television once a week or twice a week, every wrestling fan's going to watch every show. I mean, we're not in that period now. We're in a period where everyone's going to pick and choose, and a lot of people are just doing Raw and SmackDown.
Well, you can't watch every show. How bad is it when you can't do it?
I know, but you know what? It's kind of a blessing. I mean, when the other day when I was watching that Noah show, it was just like it's like everything like when in the 90s and everything like this. It's like, man, I wished for the day, you know what I mean, where I don't care. Like I can watch Arena Mexico live, I can watch Noah live, I can watch All Japan live, I can watch New Japan live, I can watch everything live. Sometimes you got to pay for pay-per-view. Sometimes I just got the streaming service. I don't have to pay. I can just turn on my computer and watch all these big matches. And it's like, I mean, you can't keep up with it, but it's like, I spent my whole life dreaming of this day and it's here. So I'm kind of grateful for it. I think other people may take it for granted. I don't. I mean, it's awesome. And also, the wrestling's great now. So it's not like, it's not like this happened at a time when wrestling sucked. I mean, there were periods where, wrestling wasn't that good. And if all this had happened, it would have been, so what? But this is not that. I mean, but yeah, you can't keep up with it, but it also has desensitized us. I mean, these, I mean, the thing when I was watching that match, I mean, there were a couple people who told me, you got to watch the Ishii and Kitamiya match. It's really good. So I made sure to watch it. And it was fantastic. But the thing is like, it was only a couple people who told me. It's like, even if you go back 3 or 4 years, and certainly if you go back, like, I mean, I can remember when New Japan would have these big shows, like with, in 2017, 2018, that era, right? And I would wake up in the morning and I would just be inundated with emails and messages and stuff. Oh my God, you've got to see, this match, right? And it would be great. And it's like, I don't get inundated because people see these matches that are so great all the time. Sometimes I'll get messages for a few of them, but it's not like, it doesn't, and it's the same thing with like AEW. When AEW first started, I mean, the reality is that, those great matches that they had, number one, everyone would talk about them afterwards for at least for a day. I mean, which now they don't even talk about it for a day, but for at least for a day. And they did deliver ratings. I mean, there was an audience that was going there because we'd never seen matches like this on TV week in and week out. Now it's just so, just part of this deal that people are so desensitized that it doesn't, it doesn't mean it, it doesn't mean anything. You need more than that now.
And it's funny to think the original Ring of Honor made its money selling DVDs of good matches.
Yeah, that's what the thing was.
And now it's expected. It's no longer a commodity.
Yeah, look. I know people who know that the AEW pay-per-view is going to be great, and just are like, "Meh, I've seen it."
Yeah.
And we'll see. We'll see if they bounce back. We'll see how they do. We'll see how WWE numbers are this week, and people watch this show, which we can talk about the show later. Yeah. But it's an interesting period. It's a very tough period. It's a very tough period to be the number 2 company, though.
Absolutely. You want to do Collision or King of the Ring first? Queen of the Ring.
Do Collision first because I don't know anything about it.
All right. So it was a good show. I mean, good wrestling. Just a build strictly for the pay-per-view.
Any new matches?
No, not that I recall. I'll go through it. And so they got Moxley came into the crowd, and they played a video of his debut 5 years ago, the first Double or Nothing. And I guess if there's a criticism of this show, they kept talking about the 5-year anniversary of
Well, I
AEW,
wanted them to do that finally.
but they never showed any history clips.
Okay. Then that is a criticism.
Other than him, it's like, and I don't know if they felt like selling the pay-per-view was more important, or maybe today is weaker by comparison. I don't know, but I even thought brief clips as bumpers in and out.
Right. Yeah. I was hoping that they would do. I would hoping they would do that for the 5-year anniversary. I even wrote about that, and I thought, and they really like they've mentioned it's the 5-year anniversary. It's certainly been mentioned, but it's not been. It's not like WWE. Like when WWE has like the 10-year anniversary of Raw, they beat you over the head with it. They bring so many things back, and they do fantastic ratings for those type of shows.
I remember the WrestleMania 10. You go back and watch it on Peacock, and you'll see they put in clips of every anniversary, but Hulk Hogan was not a part of the company at that time. So somehow they worked around 90% of their history by virtually editing out Hulk Hogan from all of those WrestleManias.
Yeah.
But
at least they're not that petty now. Because like now if they're going to do a big thing, I mean, they won't edit out Bryan Danielson.
Right. But I'm just saying, it's like whatever they're worried about shouldn't be a concern, is my point.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, Don Callis came out to interrupt Mox. Long speech about them being the same and how they'd be more effective together. Mox didn't buy it. He said he wanted to put another 24 stitches on Callis' forehead. Takeshita attacked Mox from behind. They did the Pullman with the chair. BCC members finally came out to chase away the Callis family. Played a video of Ospreay bloodied from Wednesday. He cut a great promo. Then it was the Righteous and Lance Archer versus Claudio, Daniel Garcia, and spoiler alert, their mystery partner turned out to be Tanahashi. Highlight was Claudio giving Big Dutch, got him up for a couple of swings. Archer cut him off, tried for a suplex. Claudio reversed it, did the Davey Boy Smith suplex to a degree. Not long after, Tana pinned Vincent with the high five low. Mm-hmm. Again, a lot of fun matches, nothing of any consequence. Lucha Brothers returned. They brought out their respective sons wearing masks coming down the ramp. And Tony mentioned it's been 238 days since the last time they teamed in AEW at Wrestle Dream. Mm-hmm. Took on the Guns. They had a good match, little style clash here and there. That's understandable, but not bad by any means. Lots of double teaming by both teams. Guns tried to 310 to Yuma. Penta blocked it. Phoenix out the top rope with the Fear Factor pin. Pac came out to celebrate, and then Jay White came out on the ramp holding up his belt as a Death Triangle ends into Double or Nothing, the announcer said.
So how did Phoenix look?
He looked fine.
Okay,
he looked fine. He looked like Phoenix.
Good, because he's been hurting for a long time.
Oh, absolutely. So we'll see how it goes. See how well it goes tomorrow. Yeah. They did a replay of the 3-way won by Hook and Shibata, which led to a backstage interview with Jericho and Big Bill, which was interrupted then by Brian Keith. He said that Chris hasn't seen the last of him. Kyle O'Reilly versus a wrestler named KM.
Okay, Matthews, yeah.
Big guy.
Yeah.
Good looking gear. Peppered him with kicks and chops. Then a guillotine. Finally rolled him in the Fujiwara armbar. Immediate tap out. Short match. Mercedes Money video package. After the break, they showed a replay of the Mercedes Willow confrontation on Rampage. Willow came out with Chris Statlander.
Okay, I got to say one thing. They've been building this match up.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they have shown the clip of Mercedes breaking her foot or ankle or whatever she broke.
No.
From the New Japan show. I mean, to me, it's like, and granted, it's not like it's an intentional thing. It's a total fluke. But the reality is that this entire feud is built on the fact of that injury. If it wasn't for that injury, this match would not be happening. She'd be wrestling Julia Hart. She'd be wrestling somebody else.
Right.
But they never show. They mention it at times. they have mentioned I was out of action for a year, and it's been almost a year. Just I think June, whatever it was last year, early June was when she got hurt. Now we're at the end of May, so it's almost been the entire year. But I was just like, why don't they just show the thing and
show the pinfall? It was like a roll up,
that too, yeah. But show the pinfall, show the injury spot, show the pinfall, play the game of, was it on purpose? Was it an accident? Where you don't know, because you don't know, right? I mean, in theory, of course we know it's an accident, but play the thing of like, did you, and that should be Mercedes's thing. Is like, yeah, everybody here, thinks that you did it by, this was just an accident. It was just a fluke thing, but I don't trust you and I don't believe it. It never went in that direction, ever.
The only thing I'd say is there's too much Chris Statlander. And is anybody going to be surprised if Statlander costs Willow the match?
No.
So it feels like there's a lot of it. And she's too happy.
Yeah.
So center of the ring, good promo by Willow. Told Mercedes she's going to wreck her. And she said championships come and go, but she'll be damned if her reign is going to end tomorrow. And at Double or Nothing, she's going to prove that the better woman is Willow Nightingale. Backstage interview with Trent Beretta. Before Trent can really get started, Rocky Romero interrupts, says that no matter what happens, they're like family and they can put this whole thing back together. Trent says, absolutely not happening, and don't do that again. Mm-hmm. 4-way tag team match, Buddy Matthews, Brody King versus Gates of Agony with Brian Cage, Infantry with Trish Adora, and the Acclaimed with Daddy Ass. Just a crazy, action-packed match. The crowd loved it when Brody and Toa tagged in. Big guys, slapping forearms. Then every partner tried to interfere, and they were either forearmed or booted out of the ring. Everybody outside brawling, and Brody King does a suicide dive out onto the group and into the commercial break. Nigel called Buddy Matthews the prototype for a pro wrestler. I'll tell you what, he's going to be amazed when he finally sees Kenny Omega. It's going to be incredible. Double dive outside by the Infantry. Dean and Bravo took turns double teaming Brody until Buddy interfered. The Acclaim and the Gates of Agony, for some reason, brawled to the back. Brody pinned Bravo after a cannonball. Again, fun match. Lots of dives and action. Adam Copeland, looking very Edge-like in 1999, squatting down against a white wall, sort of a grainy film effect. I've been walking this path since before your balls dropped. Talking to Malachi Black. And you showed me where I need to navigate, the margins, the outside, the version that has the devil on this soldier and no angel on the other. And he says, it won't be Malachi's dream to team with the man who inspired him should he lose. It's going to be his nightmare, because if he wins, Brody and Buddy will join him. The House of Blood. So I like that name. Mm-hmm. Copeland told Malachi this: when you see evil in man's eyes, you're already too late. So we'll see how this goes. Evil, I got a video package from Dynamite. Tony Storm interviewed after the shoe attack, responding to Serena Deeb. You want to be a victim? I'll make you a victim. You want meaning? In your obituary, it will mention that you once lost to the champ. Mariah May versus Layla Hirsch. Mariah May laid in some heavy chops. Then she rubbed her chest into Layla's face, followed by a little kicking dance. It's a clip everyone's sharing. They come back. I think Mariah is ridiculously good. That time she spent in Stardom, she really leveled up. Layla missed a moonsault, series of clotheslines, backdrop driver by Mariah, then a shotgun dropkick by Layla, 2 count. Layla moved out of the way, hip attack, turned it into a bridge, 2 count, and then hit the Mayday, the running knee. Mariah got the pin. Backstage, Lexi Nair asks Serena Deeb if she's prepared. She says the biggest match of her career. She called it Deeb or Nothing. Promises to stretch Tony limb from limb. And she says time's up for timeless Tony Storm. Video package with Christian and Bloody Swerve going back and forth. I think it's the one they did for the Go Home special. And video of the Bucks signing shoes in Las Vegas at Champs. And some guy, some fan, had a big all elite Bucks, like an all elite AEW tattoo on his forearm. Good for him. Bryan Danielson, FTR, beat Jeff Jarrett, Jay Lethal, and Satnam Singh with Sanjay Dutt and Karen Jarrett. Fun match, lots of antics, and everybody got their spots in. Coming to the ring, Dutt flashed an envelope full of cash, obviously from the EVPs. And the announcers mentioned that Jeff Jarrett told them that he's never lost a match to Bryan Danielson. So if that didn't tell you the finish, I hope you enjoyed your first ever wrestling match. So after the break, Lethal tagged in Singh, who grabbed Harwood. He's on his knees, and he's choke slamming him repeatedly on his knees. Then gave Dax a claw. Cash came off the top rope. Singh clotheslined him out of the ring. And I'll tell you what, Bryan and Jarrett are such old pros. They worked beautifully together. I would love to see them in like a 30-minute match. The stuff they could do, I'd love to see that before Bryan retires. But Bryan sort of mocked by doing some of Jarrett's moves, took Jarrett down for the label lock. Lethal broke that up, and then Bryan dove outside. Back in the ring, Danielson and FTR triple teamed Satnam Singh on his knees with kicks. FTR gave Singh the FTR trigger. Danielson followed up with the knee, and then Lethal hit both members of FTR with a lethal injection. But Danielson took him out with the clothesline. Finish game. Can you tell there's tons of sequences and spots? Finish game when Karen Jarrett tried to give Jeff his guitar, but Aubrey cut her off. This was just a distraction, though, so Sanjay could slide in another chair. Jarrett swung the chair at Danielson, who ducked. Jarrett caught Singh, of course. Danielson nailed Jarrett with the knee. FTR finished off Lethal with the Shatter Machine, so Danielson could pin Jarrett. So after the match, Cash Wheeler cut a fired-up promo about the virtues of AEW. Says how it's better for wrestlers, better for fans, and wrestling is better because of AEW. They may be limping into double or nothing, but they'll be the only four guys walking out after the match. So great promos from FTR to set up the pay-per-view and wrap up Collision. But again, the thing with wrestling, like you mentioned, you're going to get everybody who's so talented. The talent level and the bar in virtually every company is so high. You're going to get great matches no matter what show you watch. People decide that show is good or bad based on how eventful it is. And we're so spoiled.
And the problem with that is just you make things too eventful, you burn that part out too.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. I mean, like one of the things like people will complain is like, oh, there's not enough stories. And it's like, there's too many. There's way too many. Because you can't keep up. You can't keep up with them.
Somebody in the chat says, Phil Dax has basically done the same promo a bunch of times, and it's getting a bit stale. So,
I haven't seen the promo.
I just haven't seen enough promos, man. You see more Dax promos or whatever.
I've seen a million Dax promos, but I haven't seen this one. I'm not going to judge on what I haven't seen.
Yeah. I guess it was Cash technically, but
Cash usually doesn't talk a lot. It's usually Dax who carries.
Yeah, no, it's Cash. So there you go. Anyway. You want to do King and Queen of the Ring?
Sure. We can talk about that. I mean, like it's so soon to me, 3 weeks after the Leon France show, And then they're doing another one in 3 weeks in Glasgow, where they already announced it's Drew McIntyre and Damian Priest, which we already knew. You know, I mean, we already knew that. So it's like Leon, I thought was a great show. This show I thought was a show, just a show.
It was just a show.
It was the stuff. I mean, you know, Gunther and Randy Orton was real good. It was real good, but it's no better than any other match. I mean, I've probably seen 10 matches as good in the last 2 weeks. I mean, it was real good. Cody Rhodes and Logan Paul was very good, but it couldn't touch Cody Rhodes and AJ, but still very good. And then the rest of the show, I wouldn't, you know, the three-way was good. You know, the three-way is good. And the other ones were the women's matches. Nia Jackson and Lyra Valkyria, to me, was nothing at all. I mean, just I can't say I expected a great match, but it was less than I expected.
You know what it was? It was a 1970s Andre the Giant match.
Yeah.
Nia Jax wrestled like Andre the Giant used to.
Yeah.
She's Andre the Giant.
Yeah, and then the women's tag team title to me was, below average. You know, I mean, there was some stuff that wasn't quite there. And the other thing that threw me off, and I would say the same thing for the Becky Lynch and Liv Morgan match, where Liv won the championship due to interference from Dominic Mysterio, even though Dominic Mysterio was trying to screw Liv Morgan. You know, it backfired. But the one thing, Becky Lynch, and I mean, you know, it's nobody's fault. They've got to dress the way they've got to dress, which is another thing I want to get into later. But she looked like an usher at a play, you know, and she seemed, as Becky Lynch, she seemed so uncomfortable working in that thing that she was just off a lot early. I mean, and after a while it got better, but I don't think that they ever got to where, you know, they were expecting to get. I mean, I just thought the match was fine, but it wasn't, I wouldn't call it good. I would say it was all right.
Yeah.
The women's tag I thought was like very slightly below average. You know, when you had like, you know, Indy's not that great. Jade's not that great, really, even though she's got the presence. And even, you know, covered from head to toe, she still exudes the charisma. I'll give her that. You know, it's not just the body, because the body was totally covered up, and the people took to her as a star, and she carries herself like a star. And, you know, she's still limited in what she can do. I thought the match was, you know, so-so. And, you know, I mean, that's the whole show right there. So, I mean, it starts with the tag team title, women's tag team title. And, you know, the one thing, it's like you know, I haven't seen if there's criticism, but if this was AEW, people would just be saying Tony Khan was the worst booker in the world, because they literally just on Monday had a match where the winner was going to get the women's tag team title. And the people who won were Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark. So now we're on the pay-per-view show, and it's Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell, who haven't beaten anyone, who haven't done anything at all, you know, getting a shot. And obviously they were there to lose, and they did. They were there just to put over Belair and Cargill, and they did a different finish than they've been doing. What was the deal? It was they just basically it was like the Shoto, you know, that Goto and Hiroki Goto and Yoshihashi use, and then finally a kind of a wheelbarrow suplex by Jade on Candice LeRae. But they called it a Japanese Ocean Cyclone suplex, which it absolutely was not. And Corey Graves is usually really good at this, but it just wasn't that. It was a wheelbarrow suplex. And the finish, I liked the finish. The finish was good, but the match I thought was just so-so. And then what was it? That was pretty much it. Then they had I'm actually at the wrong thing. I was looking at the my SmackDown notes. Then Becky Lynch and Liv Morgan and Dominic Mysterio comes out right as Becky Lynch has the match won, and he's there to help Becky Lynch, because the idea is that he's trying to get revenge, because it was Liv Morgan who was injured. What's her name? Mommy. And then what was it? So So he throws in the chair. The ref misses it, and Liv Morgan ends up DDTing Becky Lynch on the chair and hitting Oblivion to get the win. So she won the championship. Becky Lynch was never meant to be the champion in the first place. It was supposed to be Rhea Ripley all the way through, and probably Rhea Ripley defending here. But it just fell through with Rhea Ripley's injury. Sami Zayn, Bronson Reed, and Chad Gable, they did some really cool stuff. All three are very good at what they do. Some very creative spots. I didn't really like the finish too much. It was very much, I understood where it was coming from. It's basically Otis was there, and it plays into the storyline they were doing. Otis was there, and Otis clotheslined Bronson Reed, and then he tells Otis to clothesline Sami Zayn, and he just won't do it. And he asks him again, he won't do it. And then Gable gets mad at him, starts slapping him, and asks him to do it again. He's holding Sami Zayn, and of course, he comes finally. He held up once when he does the clothesline. The next time he runs, he's doing the clothesline. Sami Zayn drops. He nails Chad Gable. Chad Gable's out, and then Bronson Reed had been taken out earlier with what was the spot where they took him out? Otis, when Otis took him out with the clothesline. So then he ends up all groggy in the ring. Sami Zayn hits the haluva kick and pins Bronson Reed, and that's the match. So kind of like the whole finish was all based on Otis, but that was the TV storyline and everything. But yeah, this was a real good match. Nia Jackson, Lyra Valkyria, pretty much like Lyra got a brief bit of offense, but it was pretty much Nia Jax just killing her. The finish was nice looking because Lyra went for a power bomb, and Nia Jax just basically fell on her with the Annihilator and got the pin. But there wasn't a nice finish, but not much to the match at all. And then, of course, that means that Nia Jax will be wrestling Bayley for the championship at SummerSlam, which, by the way, SummerSlam's got 45,000 tickets out. So they're doing in like a little over a week, maybe a week. So that's going to be a big, it's already a huge success. And then what was it? Yeah, Paul Levesque came out, gave Nia Jax a crown. She kind of kneeled to him, and she vowed to be the next champion. So then we had Orton and Gunther, and the fans were singing Randy Orton's song. They played that song. It felt like, how long did that song go? It had to have gone like 7 minutes. I didn't time it, but it's like every time I'm sitting there going like, okay, it's the last bar. Then they played again, and then they played it again, and they played it again. And it was cool because the crowd would only sing the one verse, right? Like they'd be quiet. Some people would sing the whole song, and then it would be like, the big verse at the end, and I hear voices in my head, but that one, they're all singing it over and over and over again. It's actually a pretty cool atmosphere.
I thought the Saudi crowd was obviously excited, but I thought at times they intentionally hijacked it. When you compare it to Paris, it felt like natural excitement.
I actually didn't think Paris was natural excitement. I thought Paris was people just trying to have fun, because there were a lot of matches in Paris where it was in Lyon. It wasn't Paris, but there were a lot of matches in Lyon where the crowd's going crazy, but not for the match. They're going crazy for their chants.
I felt like Randy Orton selling all the injuries,
right,
with the different audience. That would have been a more dramatic sounding crowd.
Agreed.
Tons of cheers, and I thought that atmosphere hurt that match. And I thought that crowd, more often than not, hurt the various matches rather than help them.
I did not see the crowd. The crowd was loud and everything, but I thought the crowd helped the Becky Lynch match.
Oh, yeah.
I would say that because she was very, very over, and there was a lot of sloppiness to it that they just totally overlooked.
She's a stoker.
Yeah. But in this match, it did not create the full dramatic atmosphere that Randy Orton's performance was trying to create. I totally agree with you on that. I thought the match was really, really good. And
Randy worked his ass off for Gunther.
yeah, he did.
He sold his ass off. Yeah.
The other thing that's it's like Randy Orton is so deceptively huge because actually Gunther looks small next to him. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I always think of Gunther as being 6'4" just because he looks big next to everyone else, but Randy's a real 6'4", and Gunther's really only 6'2", you know? And, Randy was much bigger. I mean, the thing also with Randy is like, Randy's like 35 pounds heavier than he was when he was in his 20s.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And nobody's like that. I mean, just whatever.
Well, he's not fat. Don't get me wrong, but young Randy Orton was so, slim and had such a flat stomach. And now it's not flat. He's not fat.
He's in his 40s.
I know what I'm saying. 40s. Because it's so different from his young frame, it's very noticeable.
Agreed, though. Agreed. Yeah. I don't think the trunks are flattering on him at all for that very reason. But again, he looks phenomenal. He's in his 40s, but I do think, even though I can't say his wrestling isn't as good, everyone's got their right weight. You know what I mean? I remember when I was in high school and we had this track coach and, talking about people going up and down in weight for different sports like football or whatever. And he goes, the one thing is that everyone's got their right weight. And even if you go up a weight or two weights by lifting weights like crazy and eating like crazy, and you kind of get that big bloated look, it's, and if you're a football lineman, that's maybe even be necessary. But for athleticism, you are sacrificing athleticism when you go up in weight past your normal weight. And I do think that, there's no need for Randy Orton to be 270 pounds. He probably is. Like, they announced him at 275. And I could just say, like, Drew McIntyre, I know, hovers between 260 and 266. Okay, that's his usual weight. Randy's bigger than him. So Randy probably is 275. And Randy really, 235, 240 is probably his best weight. But
he doesn't need it. I don't know.
He doesn't need it. He looks, but whatever. It's like I'm not criticizing his wrestling, and he still wrestles great because he's fundamentally a super wrestler. And he's always been. He's fundamentally a super wrestler. He's
always had great instincts.
Well, great. He doesn't waste any movement. Every movement means something. Every movement is done really slick. He doesn't take unnecessary risks, which sometimes, like, he doesn't necessarily, to me, I don't think that you ever have this Randy Orton match where, like, you just go, oh my God, this match is incredible. But you always have you almost always have a good match. I'm sure there's been matches with some people that weren't as good as others, obviously. But, Gunther, hit him hard. He took the chops. He doesn't need to, and he did. And I thought they had a really good match. So the deal is the finish was Randy Orton, and he's selling his was it mostly his ribs, right? Or was
and his leg. I think his injured leg too.
Okay, yeah, okay. Well, he was doing that, and Belair was doing that, and but anyway, so he's doing that, and then he hit an RKO, couldn't follow up on it the first time. Then he hit a second RKO late in the match, and Gunther actually kicked out, and then Gunther crucifixed him and pinned him, and Randy's shoulder was up. And they didn't really play it up at all. It was very, you could see it. Corey Graves kind of makes this mention, but they show a replay, but at a bad angle. So you don't actually see it and everything. But later after the show, Paul Levesque does this interview and basically goes, oh, we were so excited. The ref missed it, but I didn't even know people were telling me there's a controversy. I didn't even know there's controversy. Came back, watched the replay. It's like, there is no controversy. Randy Orton's shoulder was up. And it just goes, but Randy's pretty beat up right now. But when Randy's ready, we're going to do a rematch. So I presume that they're going to do a Randy Orton-Gunther rematch. I don't see Gunther beating Randy Orton twice, which is weird because I would have figured, like right now, the idea would look to be Gunther against the winner of Priest and McIntyre, at SummerSlam. And I thought that Gunther was getting his title shot in Berlin, not, which makes the most sense. But then he would have to lose in Berlin or win the title. But they're clearly going to do a Randy Orton Gunther rematch. And so it feels like, Gunther's match is going to be at SummerSlam, and that Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes will have a match, which I figured is going to be the main event at SummerSlam. That maybe Randy Orton gets for beating Gunther when they do the rematch. But whatever it is, they're definitely doing a Randy Orton Gunther rematch either at the next pay-per-view or Germany. So it's probably the next pay-per-view, because I don't think that should be – it's too weird for Germany, because then you're going to have that split crowd, because the European crowd just love Randy Orton. And in Germany, they're going to love Gunther. So I think that's a bad place to put the match. Whereas in Glasgow, Gunther can be the heel in that match. So maybe that's where they're going to do it. So anyway, they did that after the match, or, after the show. And then Cody and Jake Paul, you knew that the Brass Knucks were going to get involved, that Logan Paul vowed not to use them, which of course means he was going to use them. One of his buddies at ringside gave him the Knucks. He used them on the ribs. He was working on Cody's ribs the whole match. They had a very good match. The big highlight, I guess, would have been Logan Paul puts Cody on the Arabic announcer's table, and he comes off the top ropes, not with the elbow, with a full body splash, puts Cody through the table. And then he went for the Knucks, and what's the guy's name? Ibrahim Jadad, whatever. Do you know this guy's name?
I do not. I just know
apparently Abraham. He's the comedian. He's on their shows before. He did the announcing in the main event. He grabs Logan Paul's leg to distract him. Logan Paul goes for a brass knuck shot on Cody. Cody ducks, hits 3 crossroads, pins him. They went 24 minutes.
There's one thing you didn't mention.
Yeah.
They open up the show, and when they start the match, Cody goes for that, drops to his back, and hits the punch for the backdrop, and that one that Dustin does. And Logan Paul blocks it and says, "I'm Logan Paul, bitch." And then at the end, as Cody's hitting the crossroads to pin him, he says, "I'm Cody Rhodes, bitch," which I think is really smart, because now all of Logan Paul's fans who are going to watch the clip, are now going to hear, "I'm Cody Rhodes, bitch," as he gets the pin. I think that's really smart branding. I think as far as who beat Logan Paul, that was Cody Rhodes. The name. So I thought that was very clever storytelling, and very clever as far as viral clips go.
Mm-hmm. I agree. That's good. That's a good point.
Yeah. We did want to touch on. We'd be a couple of things real quick. Do you think it's a strategy to take? I mean, I'm not saying these are bad shows. These are good wrestling shows, but they don't have Roman. They don't have Brock. They don't have a lot of the big stars. And it does feel like, even though it may be compelling, it's still treading water until Roman comes back, Rock's involved again, all of that. Is it a strategy on WWE's part to send these cards to international audiences so they're rabid for it, and the product sounds hotter, even hotter than it is?
Put it this way, and I've said this for years. There's a very different strategy when you have to put on a show to get people to spend $50 for the show individually,
right? Then
when your money's guaranteed. We've seen it with UFC. We've seen it with WWE. We haven't seen it with AEW, because AEW, you have to convince people to buy the show every single time. You will never see an AEW show where they, do 5 matches and they basically do a week show on purpose. Not on, a week show on purpose in a sense. I hate to call it weak, but it's a lot of the top guys are not on the show and everything.
And when you compare it to the other shows in Saudi Arabia, there's no
This
big,
this
there's
was
no,
a much weaker show than they used to do in Saudi Arabia, because Saudi Arabia used to be about bringing in the celebrity outsiders,
right,
whether it was
or the 90 stars.
Yeah, Tyson Fury or the 90 stars and all that, right? And now, I mean, evidently they're solidified enough to where they can just bring in a show, and they, by the way, they did advertise the UFC show in Saudi Arabia on this show.
I saw that.
Yeah. And there's a lot more. There's a lot of cross promotion that's going on. I would suspect that there will be UFC people at the NXT show at the Apex. I don't know that for sure, but I would suspect it. But I do know Valentina Shevchenko is going to be at the the Louisville SmackDown show in a couple of weeks, just as an example. And they're a lot of them went to the Apex. So Swerve went to the Apex. A couple other people did, as far as I guess just looking in and everything like that. So but we're going to see a lot more cross promotion and everything like that. But yeah, I mean, as far as I'm interested, like when the last show, the one in Lyon, I mean, it was probably the least interest in a WWE pay-per-view show in a long, long time. I mean, it was the lowest pay-per-view buys. They didn't even announce a streaming number, which is the first time they haven't announced a streaming number in years. They never announced a number. They'll just go, it's up 25% from last year. That's what they'll say. They won't give you a number. This one, they didn't even say it was up. They said nothing. And the Google searches were down, and the rating, that Monday, there was no bump. It was actually, it went down, which, usually after pay-per-view, it goes up. So that one, clearly, there was not a ton of interest. So I'm interested to see if this one bounces back. I think that Cody and Logan Paul is a bigger match, because Logan Paul's a bigger name than AJ Styles. So maybe that will make a difference. But I mean, when I look at the other stuff, I mean, Gunther and Randy Orton, something, King of the Ring. I don't think the Queen of the Ring match meant a thing. As far as marketability goes, Becky Lynch and Liv is fine, whatever. But, it wasn't, you get so many of the top guys not on the show. So we'll see. We'll see how that works. But I would say that, like, if this was a $50 show, it would not do well. It would be like that last UFC show that they had, where I don't think that show did well either.
Right. We would be remiss if we didn't mention the sports washing aspect,
which is always there in every event. And the thing. Go ahead, and I'll tell you.
Well, I mean, the truth is, it's been successful.
Completely.
We're not leading with it. We're ending with it, or we're toward the end of the discussion.
Well,
in particular, the picture that many of the female roster members tweeted out of them on a private beach in bikini bathing suits, something they couldn't do in public in that country.
Well, the sports washing has been, I mean, the one lesson of this thing, is that when WWE first signed the deal, it was very controversial. When they went there after Khashoggi was killed, it was incredibly controversial. And a lot of people wouldn't go for a while. And then they did. And now everybody goes. We just had a big boxing title match. We've had how many big boxing matches there? It's the place for big boxing matches, because they spend so much money that nobody else will spend on these fights that aren't even big draw fights, but they're fights that get attention, and they're, I mean, like Don Davis just going like, he's just praising these people so much. They own a large percentage of PFL, and their rival UFC, they're spending 20 million for the next show, and 40 million for the show after. For WWE, they're spending over, they got the 2 shows a year, and I guess SmackDown is another one, but they're getting paid like crazy for these shows. The boxing matches are getting far more than the WWE matches. So you can imagine how much that is, and how much these fighters in fights that aren't even drawing are getting. It's just incredible how much money that they're getting. It's normal. It's like there's no controversy, and they're, like the thing with the women, and it's like so. Look, you spend 55 million and you ask for favors, you're going to get favors. And, this whole thing is like, we went from the idea that, whatever, that like, that women in Saudi Arabia, are treated as second class, which they are. I mean, by far, certainly like in a way that would never be allowed in most civilized countries. It is better to a degree. I mean, they, for years they didn't let women on the shows, and then finally they did, and it was not a WWE thing. It was actually something where the Russian circus came in, and the women were such an important part of the Russian circus, they had to let them in, and that was really the breakthrough before the thing. But they have started because of the Olympics, basically almost forcing them that if you want to compete in the Olympics, you're gonna have to like have some women. So they had to start doing women's sports to have women in the Olympics, or they'd be excluded from the Olympics. So there's outward pressure that's bringing a lot of these changes to them. It's still, it's probably better than it was 10 years ago. It's certainly far from, what we have or what any civilized country has. But the whole deal of is like, look, when they do, if they were to do a show in anywhere, right? Like, let's say they're going to go to Miami, Florida for a pay-per-view, or Puerto Rico, which they did do a pay-per-view. You're not going to have a bunch of pictures of the women in bikinis at the beach, even though they're on the beach. This was not done. Oh, by the way,
right. They're just looking for.
This was not. Oh, hey, let's shoot some pictures. This was a propaganda piece. And it was basically saying, look, you think we're so horrible, but we're not. Look at this. But then you watch the show, and Becky Lynch is dressed like an usher, and everybody else is.
None of the women could go into the arena without a male companion.
None of the fans.
Yeah, none of the fans.
None of the fans. That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah, and but the whole thing of like. I mean, they were really being used for propaganda purposes, and everyone is. Everyone, look, they're paying all this money, whether it's to Tyson Fury or whoever it is, right, or to the circus, or to the singers, or to anyone that goes there. You're being paid for propaganda purposes to get over, normalizing this country, and everyone look the other way over the human rights violations. That's what it is. It's like. I was, when I was driving home today, one of the things I was thinking was, like this guy, MBS, I mean, it's like, he's now back to being, this modern ruler and big guy. And it's like, for whatever we want to say about bad leaders, and there are, powerful leaders in a lot of countries are horrible people. But he did order a dismemberment of a journalist who was critical of him. Right. American journalist with the Washington Post. I mean, he ordered. It's not like this is not a. He ordered the guy to be dismembered.
Right. And where might he have gotten that information?
What?
Never mind. Talking about a certain president he might have been friends with.
Yeah, but I mean the thing. So it's like. He didn't just murder someone. He dismembered them. You know how horrible that is? And, and at first there were people horrified by it, and now, it's only a couple of years away, and, no one's horrified by it, and everyone's doing their bidding, because they've got money, and it's no surprise, I just keep, Ariel Emanuel, divesting himself of everything to do with them. And then a couple of years later, he goes, I don't know why I ever did that. And it's like, well, because for 5 minutes there, you were actually, thinking in a moral standpoint instead of a money standpoint. But that certainly went away very quick, and obviously, there we are. But it bothered me to see the women used in that manner, because it's what it was. So you're being used for propaganda purposes. It's not like you're going out there. It's like those women go to the beach all the time. We don't see the photos. This was not, it was just so, it's like I see the propaganda. It's so obvious, and it's just
someone in the chat trying to be cool says the U.S. had Julian Assange locked in solitary confinement for like 5+ years in the UK, as if the only thing Julian Assange did was criticize the United States, which is all this reporter dared to do, was report on things.
Yeah.
Something that happens every day in this country.
Yeah.
That's a false equivalency.
Yeah.
If there was one. I do want to mention, people were tweeting out the picture of the athletes, the female athletes from WWE, and a women's rights activist who's been sentenced to 11 years for tweeting out pictures of her in gymnasium clothing.
Yes.
Long pants and a t-shirt.
Yeah.
And she also mentioned that she contacted her family from prison to report she'd been held in solitary confinement with a broken leg, which happened, from the treatment of her. So, not the same.
Yeah.
Not, this false equivalency needs to stop. And then people go, well, if this is bad, well, then why talk about anything? It's just, the purity test is just ridiculous. And the false equivalency is also ridiculous. Either find an equivalency or shut the hell up.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yes, reading from an Apple phone. Actually, no, it's not an Apple phone. So anyway, someone's morally superior today in the chat. So anyway, the thing is money has paid, and you can point fingers at Saudi Arabia, but the truth is the money worked on us. That's the truth. The fact is money worked on people who didn't get paid.
Yeah.
Which is even stupider. It's like, I understand if you got some cash, but if you didn't get any cash, what's that say about you? So anyway, do you want to talk about something else? End the show on a nice?
Sure.
I was looking through the Today in History, and I thought there'd be something fun. Did Kerry Von Erich win or lose a title? And there's really nothing fun. The only thing I thought that was kind of interesting was today was the day the Rock and Roll Express, quote unquote, won the NWA World Championship 30 years ago when Rick Rude and Manny Fernandez left the NWA. And the funniest part about it was they took the titles with them, and Manny Fernandez was on Memphis TV holding one of Crockett's world title belts. And it blew me away that he was able to get away with that.
Well, different era. People weren't suing over stuff like that. Today there'd be a lawsuit over it.
Yeah. Someone said in the wrapping it up that Rude left for the WWF.
Right.
And Fernandez left, they call it Mid-South, but he left for Memphis. And I'm like, nobody leaves for Memphis.
Yeah. He quit. He basically quit, and Rude had a place to go.
Why did they quit? Just because they were mad about dropping the belts? I forget, to be honest.
I don't even remember. I mean, Rude was just leaving, and Vince liked when guys had belts and didn't do the job on the way out. Vince liked that. You were encouraged. Right. So he was just winning brownie points for Vince. Vince didn't want his guys losing, so that was probably it. And then as far as Fernandez, it's Manny. I don't know what Manny's thing. I mean, Manny was a great pro wrestler. I remember from the start, he was one of those guys who was a natural. I'm trying to remember if the first I saw of him was Amarillo or Florida. Manny is from San Jose. I knew of him. He was a couple years older than me. Went to high school. We went to a rival high school. Great football player, great wrestler. Not as good as he claims. I mean, he would claim that he was
the Manny Fernandez that was on the Dolphins,
and then he was an NCAA champion wrestler and all that. But
he went to Vietnam.
Vietnam, right. Yeah. None of which adds up, but he did go to West Texas State where the Funks met him and they broke him in. And I think that I saw him in Florida first, but I mean, he was basically a rookie and they were giving him a big push in Florida champion and everything like that right off the bat. And, and he was good. And I remember seeing him in, like he worked the Amarillo territory, as well. And, different places. And then Crockett was probably his most famous place. And Dusty liked him a lot. I mean, he was kind of in that position where he was Dusty's tag team partner in main event matches. And then, him and Dusty, whatever happened, he left in his career. He worked a little for Vern and everything, but his career never did anything afterwards. He should have had a better career than he had. He was not a guy who was going to last in WWE for a number of reasons. His temper wasn't going to work there. And also, for Vince wanted bodybuilders. He wanted a bodybuilder. He was a hell of an athlete, but not a bodybuilder. And then, he could have been a star for Dusty for a long, long time just because he was that good. But he just, whatever, and then he just kind of, he worked at Indies for the next 100 years, but, up until not all that long ago, he was still doing Indies. Him and Dusty had a falling out. He left and his career, pretty much nosedived from there.
Yeah, I was never a big fan. I know a lot of people were, but I always found him just kind of boring.
Yeah, he was pretty dynamic. Live, he was a very exciting wrestler to watch live. He had that, and he was actually technically he was really freaking good. I remember when he came here, he was a trainer for All Pro Wrestling, and so he would work on some of the shows. And just to do just his stuff, his basic stuff was actually excellent. It really was. It's when you see guys. I saw him ringside for a lot of matches at that period, and his fundamentals were outstanding. Like the way he would take the perfect bump and the way he would sell and the way he would do all the basic stuff. He's very much indoctrinated in that Amarillo wrestling style. And everyone is kind of gravitates towards the first style that you learn. And he started, it was, and the Amarillo style was a good style anyway, because it's that funk basic style. And man, his stuff was all good, and he was very fast for a big guy because he was a real athlete. And promos, so. I think him and Dusty made a great team because Manny was really a really good fire, really good fire on the comebacks, really good sell. And, he could carry 70% of the match and Dusty could come in and do the Dusty stuff. So they were very effective together, I thought, as a team. And then with Rick Rude, then he went heel. I always thought Manny was going to be better as a heel than a babyface. He was a babyface for years, but he was just naturally unlikable. Just one of those guys when he was a babyface, just the way he did his promos and everything. Rick Rude was the same way. When Rick Rude first started, everybody wanted him as a babyface because he was a good-looking, muscular guy. They thought all the women were going to love him, right? And it didn't work out that way. He really was nothing as a babyface. And I remember watching going this guy needs to be a heel. This guy is not a babyface. And then it was Jarrett, who had him turn heel and work with Lawler. And that's when his career really blossomed. It was as a heel. And Manny was the same way. They were just both better as heels because they came across as very unlikable people, even when they were baby faces. So guys like that can thrive as heels. And, and I can't say Manny thrived, but they were having a good run and, he'd had years to go if he stayed in tight with Dusty because, he was, he's one of those guys you can put him anywhere in the card against anyone and he would do fine for that spot on the card.
I never understood why they let Rick Rude go and why.
Well, they didn't let Rick Rude go.
Why not in singles?
What?
I never understood.
They might have down the road. I know what you're saying. Yeah, because he was that talented. In Crockett Promotions, being in a tag team was not a negative.
No.
You could break off it. I mean, Tully was a tag team guy, and he was the United States champion. Ric Flair for years was a tag team guy. You know, so it's
They clearly hid him, but he's so charismatic and looks so good, and there's so many good workers.
Rick Rude was tremendous.
Yeah, they could have covered for him easily. I mean, they covered for Nikita Koloff after all when he had no training.
With no training, yeah. Well, they had great people, because if Nikita Koloff had come along somewhere else in another territory, he never would have made it. But they had so many great wrestlers for him to work with that he was a hit from day one. So I mean, the thing with Rick Rude is he just got the offer from Vince and went. And Vince could have done more with. I mean, I'm not saying like he was a big star for Vince, but Vince could have done more with him too. You know, he never got the run with Hogan, and he absolutely could have and would have drawn big with Hogan. I really thought that Rick Rude's peak was with Sting and you know, like when he was there, he was the best heel in the business for a couple of years or two, really, until he broke his back. You know, I mean, I think
he was.
You know, and if he hadn't broken his back, I would say that basically in his career, the match with Sting at Fukuoka Dome, if it wasn't for that match, I mean, he'd have probably had 5, 7, 8, 10 more years of being, because he was so unlikable and so good at that. And with WCW, you know, like I mean, like with WCW, they were not afraid to make him the number one heel. Vince would never make him the number one heel for whatever reason, even though he was, you know, and there were other guys too. It's like Vince had other talent. But Rick Rude got better. Like the Rick Rude of WCW was a better worker than the Rick Rude in WWF, even though Rick Rude in WWF was a hell of a worker. But he really was hitting his stride. Like he was tremendous. And he would have, you know, had, I don't know what, you know, when Hogan comes in, you know, and then what happens then. But I think because he had that WWF background, I think that, you know, I think that he would have got kind of favored nations thing, and he would have done pretty well. And he was a tough guy. Everybody wanted to be with him. So I think that when that NWO thing comes, I think that he'd have been in that clique. And I think he would have had an outstanding, you know, career had he not broken the back. And that just, you know, stuff happens. That's history. You know, I mean, there's a million what ifs, you know. I mean, I just wrote a freaking Bob Brugger story with 50 of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. And the thing is with Rude, it's like one gets the impression, interviews with Hogan and other people, they were just sort of leery of him. I think. I don't think they trusted him
because he's a tough guy.
Yeah,
I mean, he was a tough guy.
I don't think they trusted him fully.
Maybe, you know, maybe. I never, you know, like he was a tough guy, and he got in some fights, but never I don't remember anything in the ring ever with Rick Rude that was unprofessional. I don't remember him beating anyone up. I don't remember anything like that. I always remember, you know, him selling for I never remember him eating people up either, unless it was like a job guy where he was supposed to. Like if he was against one of the top guys, I always thought he gave the guy everything and more, you know, because he knew he could, and he knew how to get. He was tremendous. The guy was great. He was really good.
Well, and also he would do comedy bumps. You know.
Oh yeah.
When he'd sell that atomic drop.
Yeah.
I mean, what tough guy that has gotten into wrestling, legit tough guy, sells an atomic drop like that?
Yeah, but he got that from Kurt Hennig. They were best friends from childhood. You know, and Kurt was the same way. You know, Kurt was another one who was a main event guy, but Kurt did a lot of comedy bumps. I mean, a lot of Kurt's matches were comedy. But, you know, Rude and Kurt, their comedy is very different from most people's comedy, in the sense that most people's comedy is like shortcuts, and their comedy was enhancing non-shortcuts. It's a big difference.
Yeah.
You know, they weren't doing it to, you know, Kurt, you know, when at the latter part of his career, when he wasn't as good because he also had the back injury, you know, he was not the wrestler that he once was by any means, although on certain nights he still could be. But Rude never reached that level, in the sense of, you know, with Rude, it wasn't like there was this downslide. It's like, boom, he breaks his back and his career's over. Well, I take that back. I actually take that back. He did have the back injury before, because it was at the end he did have to tone it down. That's true. He did kind of have that that last year, because I remember, God, like 92, he was just like freaking awesome. And then like 93, 94 was a little bit down. It was downhill. I actually was wrong about that.
So with double or nothing tomorrow, as you mentioned, AEW always puts on a great show, almost invariably. Maybe there's
well, I mean, look. The Anarchy in the Arena is going to be a wild brawl all over the place.
What are they going to do with the flamethrower? Who are they?
I don't know, but they got to use it. They have to use it,
right?
I mean, here's the thing.
They set something on fire. They can't.
I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna do. The one thing with the Anarchy in the Arena that
they go into the volcano in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I don't know.
Down.
The only thing is that they my brother brought this up to me, watching, he was at the last Anarchy in the Arena show, and he said that like it's unbelievable, but they're doing spots on top of each other, so it's hard to focus on one thing because everyone's doing their thing all at the same time. And he thought that you should focus on one thing. So but it's all action. It's going to be tremendous. Swerve and Christian are going to have a really good match. I mean, I don't think it should be the world title match on the show, but they're going to have a good match. Roddy and Will Ospreay will be fantastic. I think Moxley and Takeshita will probably be pretty great. Mercedes and Willow is very important. I think it's the most important match on this show.
I agree.
Because either Mercedes is going to turn the corner and have this incredible match, and in doing so will help Willow turn the corner too, or elevate Willow in the same way. I mean, Willow's very over and to a certain level, but if Mercedes can take Willow from someone who has good matches and is very charismatic to someone who has unreal great, best women match, or one of the best women's matches in the company history, if she can take her to that level, if that old Mercedes is back and can do that, number one, all of the negativity on Mercedes, or much of it, will go away, because at the end of the day, if Mercedes is the best woman wrestler in the United States, still, she's going to get over with this audience. They'll have to respect her for it, no matter what they think of her promos. And Willow, if she's taken to there, that's a great thing for her, because it just takes her up a notch. So that to me, that's actually the match that I'm most interested in, because that match is most important. Because Swerve isn't losing the title to Christian. They're going to have a good match. It'll be fine. Will Ospreay, if he has the greatest match in the world with Roderick Strong, it's just another of the greatest matches in the world that he's had already this year. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not changing anything. We all know how good he is, but this is the one, up and down the show, there's, whatever. Toni Storm and Serena is interesting, because I think they can have a really good match. Yeah. It's a weird dynamic because the crowd, likes Toni Storm so much, and Serena was pretty much the baby face for much of the build, but then at the end, it was almost like that they kind of, are kind of going like, well, Tony's going to be the baby face, so just go a little heel. And all the, and then, again, all that other stuff, the trios title, I mean, that should be real good. Up and down the show. So it's always a show that looks good on paper. Marquee wise, I think the key is Anarchy in the Arena. How much does that mean? How much does the storyline mean? Can it carry a show to a good buy rate? I don't think Swerve and Christian's the match that can. And Mercedes' first match, I don't feel that Mercedes has been strong enough yet, but I think it's the most important women's match the company's had. So what's the story with Jamie Hayter? Or is there a story?
I haven't heard. What do you mean?
Oh, I don't know. Before I get on the air, someone was saying that she's on her way back or something. I don't know.
It wasn't me. I haven't heard. I don't know.
I don't know. It's certainly been enough time. She's been gone for a long, long time. And she was very, if she's in and she can go and feud with Mercedes, that would be, and Mercedes is the old Mercedes, that could be a hell of a deal.
If you could do that for Wembley, yeah.
Yeah, for Wembley, that'd be fantastic for Wembley.
Also, if Mercedes can put the performance in that she did for Bianca at WrestleMania, maybe that's asking too much. I don't know. If she can do that, I agree with you that all will be right in her world. But
I think this audience will respect her if she puts on, a match equivalent to the great men's matches that AEW has. If she can do that on a monthly basis or whatever it is on pay-per-views and on TV, then I think that people will turn the corner. And then, you also have Britt Baker someday coming back. I have no idea when, but that's, to me, like, I think that's like a kind of a marquee match because Britt Baker was the star of the women's star of AEW until she got hurt.
Yeah. No, there's possibilities, assuming, the recoveries play in AEW's favor.
Yeah.
What about buy rate? If you were to guess,
I would say that my gut is that if they do what the last one did, which 121, 122 is my gut. If they do that, I think that's okay. I think that if they drop more than a few thousand from it, it's not good. If they go up, of course, it's good. I don't expect a 140 or anything like that, like they had been doing. But I do think, Max is in theory on his way back, and he was a big draw as world champion, and he's not world champion now. But perhaps like him being back, and Adam Cole. I don't know what's the status of Adam Cole. I mean, he was walking on that pay-per-view, and then we haven't seen him lately. And I don't know what happens. Like that feud ended so abruptly. They both got hurt, and they never could follow up on what was the number one storyline the company had for months and months and months. And you kind of have to go back to it when they're healthy. But I don't know how, Adam Cole's injury was really, really nasty. And Max's shoulder injury was pretty bad too. They're both, but you do have those two coming back. Kenny, don't have any kind of date on Kenny Omega coming back yet. Finally had the surgery. So it'll be a bit, with that surgery, it's going to be months still. So I don't know. Will everyone be healthy by Wembley? There's still Adam Page. Adam Page is coming back at some point. I don't know when. Maybe even this week. I don't know.
There's so many injuries. More than when you lay it out like that, it's like,
yeah, their injury rate's high. Yeah, especially because a lot of them are Max and Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter and
like every top name.
Yeah. So many of them. Yeah. I mean, their injury rate's pretty. For a while there, them and WWE, the injury rates were kind of similar, but now they're and WWE has its share too, but AEW is worse without a doubt.
Right. And what about all those tournaments WWE runs? It's ridiculous.
Well,
I'm kidding.
Yeah, they run constant tournaments.
They have run a lot of tournaments this year, but no one cares.
Yeah. But, AEW has tournaments, and everyone goes, "There's too many tournaments." WWE has tournaments constantly, and whatever. The ones who have the tournaments, freaking Arena Mexico, every month there's every month is built around a tournament. It feels like,
and New Japan too, but
New Japan's doing lots of tournaments. Yeah, they sure are.
It's all Japan too. I mean, it's all the tournaments. Everybody's got the tournaments.
Which, yeah.
Noah does too. They all have them. But
Did you watch the Marigold show?
I have not seen the Marigold show yet. No.
Okay.
You said Suri's like the best wrestler in the world, female wrestler in the world.
Oh man, she's awesome. She was great in that match. The main event was outstanding. The card had a great atmosphere. The main event's the only super match on the show, but I think that one of the things when you watch it, you'll see a lot of young wrestlers that you've never seen before, or you've seen rarely, and you'll go like, they're not there yet, but if they improve, if they improve, it's like I see future stars when I watch Bozilla and Mazeda Steel, has a certain charisma about her.
Wow.
Both of them. Bozilla has incredible potential. She's not there yet. She's just starting basically. And
but that's the system to be in. You're going to learn.
It's like Mariah May in a lot of ways. It's like if they go in there and they're working with these people and in that system. And Yuzuki is another one who, I looked at her and it's just kind of like, oh yeah, 2 years from now, she's already got certain fundamentals down and she's got a look and all this. And I was, you watch it and you go like, if this thing, I mean, I can see a lot of potential in a lot of the people there. So there's the problem is their top of the card is not deep at all. Especially when Julia leaves, and Julia's hurt now anyway. So it's like, if Julia was not going to WWE, I would be more positive, because at least they would have that one superstar and who can carry the whole thing. And now, like, their biggest superstar is Utami, and Utami is a very good worker, but she doesn't have Julia's charisma. And and Mirai is very good, but I expected when this thing started that they would have more, and maybe in a year they will, but they got to last that year, and in a year some of these young people will start to improve too. So that's the one thing is with that system, whatever it is, the Japanese women wrestlers on the main promotions, like in Stardom and everything like that, and always from the beginning of time, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's the training or what, they improve so much faster than the American women. I don't know if it's like the cultural differences in the sense of, when I was a kid, the Japanese women athletes were trained like American amateur wrestlers, no matter what the sport. And the people who know about American amateur wrestlers at the high level, that's the hardest thing in the world as far as the training goes of any sport. And they like the volleyball players. That would have probably been maybe just before your time, but when I was a kid, they would do the clips of the Japanese women's volleyball players and how they trained. And they had the best, they did not have tall women, and they had the best women's volleyball team in the world. They were incredible trainers. And the women wrestlers, years later, when I saw the women wrestlers training, and some of that's in Gaia Girls anyway, but all of the stories about how the women trained, and I saw how the women trained, and it's very different from here. But my God, like there's so many of them got so good so fast. They improved so fast. It's a training system, and New Japan kind of has that training system too. But it's like I don't know what the difference is, because you would think the WWE would want to learn from that, because again, like I'll see people in Japanese women wrestlers that are 19, 20 years old that have been wrestling for a year, and they're better than women that have had 4 years in any American. I'm not just picking on WWE, any American system.
Well, that's what I'm going to be curious about with the new Stardom. Whatever happens are those training methods that were started, instigated under the old regime, are they going to be continued, or are they going to be altered? Are they going to be totally scrapped? It's going to be curious to see whatever happens to the new Stardom or the current Stardom going forward, what kind of talent it's going to be able to develop.
Yeah.
And like you said, I think the difference from what I've seen firsthand is that, we'll just call it, under the Rossi system, the old Stardom system, was, they're training as a troupe every day. Stars, rookies, they're doing everything as a troupe. So not only do you have the conditioning, you also have, that bonding, and anybody can virtually do a match with anybody on that roster, because they're running the same drills, running the same stuff, doing everything, and everybody is on the same page mentally and physically. It's a very integrated system.
Well, the other thing too is what's good for the women there, and you can even see it in the first two cards that are coming up actually today. They're probably going on as we're speaking, but the second and third card, basically the first card was last week, but or Monday, is like it's not like you in the United States where you may wrestle one or two different people. It's like everyone's mixed into everyone. Everyone like gets a shot in up the card, opening match. You know what I mean? You're all you have experience at everything from the start. Like you'll have a lot of these women that are literally very new in their careers will be doing main events against main eventers. And like in WWE, like, somebody brought up in WWE to me, like, and it's just like if you have someone who's just starting out, like how long is it going to be before they work with Seth Rollins? And it's like 7 years, 5 years, you know what I mean? 6 years. And I mean, they're doing it they're literally doing it from day one.
All right, we're running out of time. I'm going to get in trouble. I could stay up talking all night. I've got a million other things. But let's do this sooner rather than later again in the future if we can.
Yes, I would love to do this.
All right. You guys can do a show after Double or Nothing tomorrow, you and Brian?
Yeah, Garrett and I are doing a show right after the press conference is over, yeah.
Okay, so do that. And then I assume you and Brian will talk probably. When do you guys do the next after Raw?
Me and Brian will be up on Monday night, yeah.
On Monday night, okay. So that'll be up for subscribers. I think, by the way, on accident, I put this show up on YouTube for everybody.
Oh, okay.
So everybody, you're welcome. My mistake is your benefit. Not that anyone's going to care. So for Dave, I'm Jim, and he'll be talking to you next time. So long.
All right. Good night.
All right, man. Have a good night.
Okay.
Talk to you later.